Tomorrow, July 4th, in Dnipro, is a day of mourning for the dead, because today right in the morning the Russians launched a massive missile attack on our Ukrainian city of Dnipro. At least 4 dead, 34 wounded in hospitals. Among the victims is a 14-year-old girl. Several fires and destruction began. Rescue services are working on the ground. People are pulled out from under the rubble, debris. Most of the wounds are craniocerebral injuries, bruises, fractures, shrapnel wounds. Today, the Russians hit Dnipro with Iskander-K cruise missiles, Kh-59 aircraft missiles, and Shahed drones. Most of them were shot down, but not all. All 4 Kh-59 missiles were shot down, all 5 Shahed missiles were shot down, but of the 3 Iskander-K cruise missiles, 2 reached their target and killed the Ukrainians. And once again, yesterday I listened to the interview of just 2 randomly selected people. I am not against them now. Mikhail Sheitelman, the former director of Nash Radio, interviewed Viktor Shandarovich, a writer, both refugees, both foreign agents, convicts, whatever you want, but they are serious. One asks a question, and the other seriously begins to answer. Tell me, is this Putin's war or the war of the Russian people? In the 3rd year of the war, don't you understand yet? It's still Putin's war, so Putin has been sending missiles to the Dnipro for 3 years. He's some kind of Superman, right? He collected all these missiles that fell on the Dnieper today over the past 2+ years. These are not old missiles, they were assembled during the war. Every Russian involved in the production of these missiles knew for sure that he was killing Ukrainians. Not only those who fired knew this, not only the military. This is 1 million people at once, and even more, 1.5 million. These are those who directly kill with their own hands, those who make these missiles, those who smelt metal for these missiles, know that they are smelting metal to kill Ukrainians, that this metal will kill Ukrainians today. They know it. Those who produce gasoline and kerosene today at Russian refineries know that planes will take off on this kerosene, which will kill Ukrainians. They know that they make kerosene in order to kill Ukrainians more successfully. And this is still Putin's war. You can still seriously talk about it. Someone can talk about it. They have the right that this is a human war. I am not even talking about the fact that someone is wrong, that he is silent or not silent. I understand that there are people who sit quietly, calmly receive their pensions and remain silent. That's the truth. I have no questions for them. Let's deal only with those who are directly involved in these murders and find out that there are tens of millions of them. These are tens of millions of people. Here are 1.5 million soldiers with family members. This is already 6 million. Because this soldier comes home, and he is fed there. They don't arrest him, they don't strangle him. If they strangled you, they would say, yes, we will strangle you, because you are a murderer. But no, they feed him at home with soup, cabbies. People also work in the canteens at these factories. The metal production plant, the Novolipetsk metallurgical plant, is also Russian. They feed steel producers, who then kill Ukrainians. These are tens of millions of participants. I am talking only about direct participants, not about any indirect guilt or responsibility. Those who do it consciously, those who killed people in Dnipro today, there are tens of millions of them. And that's it. I read today that heat, as it turned out, melts the brain and reduces mental activity, study. And it's not enough that it's hot, it's not enough that it's 32 degrees outside, but also the air conditioners work very rarely when they give electricity. It is given less and less and less. And now psychologists from the United States said that heat causes irritability, spoils mood, and worsens cognitive functions. You've probably noticed that everything is unambiguous and dumber in my releases. Cognitive functions suffer, right? I'm annoyed with those who send missiles at us. My mood just deteriorates when I find out that people were killed in Dnipro. So, having spent enough time in the heat, some become prone to committing a crime, American scientists say. And this means that we must relinquish responsibility, I think. We can now shoot at any Russian cities. We will not be responsible. That's because it's hot. We have a tendency to commit crimes, because the Russians have destroyed our energy and our air conditioners do not work. We are not to blame now, these are the Russians. Well, for example, today, after a missile attack on the Belgorod region in Belgorod, there was a fire at a service station on Karachanskaya Street. Local publics write about the arrival. Fragments of the missile after the work of air defense or a direct hit are unknown. There is no official information. There are 3 victims. Fire at an agricultural enterprise. Guys, we don't answer. Sorry, we have a softening of the brain from the heat. If today we killed a certain number of people there with a strike on Novorossiysk, then sorry, we have nothing to do with it. This is the heat. Blame everything on the heat, guys. Now there is no need to demand that Ukraine comply with any rules. We are hot, and American scientists have given us, consider it, an indulgence. By the way, the heat is not a reason not to subscribe to the Sheitelman channel. The heat is a reason to subscribe to the Sheitelman channel. Because here, on this channel, it's really hot. Subscribe now. I am very grateful to you again. I'll say it again. Now the Sheitelman meter will work. You know, Sheitelman meter is also having a hard time. Look, he can't stand it. You see? It shows some kind of comma instead of the number of subscribers. I have to periodically overload the Sheitelman meter. Now I will overload you, show you what you did yesterday. Thank you. Yesterday on the channel really subscribed about 1,000 more people and now 454,000 subscribers subscribe to the channel Sheitelman short. There is a real heat and put of course likes. Olga, one of 454,000 subscribers, writes hello Michael, my name is Olga from the city of Rivne. Now my thermometer is frozen, I need to reload it again. By the way, the Russians also damaged it. But who is to blame? Hello Mikhail, my name is Olga from the city of Rivne, Western Ukraine. I apologize right away for mistakes in words. I know Russian very poorly, and I don't have this language on my phone. Well, that's right. Where does Olga come from? Why you don't have to have Russian? It's logical. In general, thank you for writing to me in a foreign language. I have been watching you every evening for a long time. You are my antidepressant. You shake up a lot of topics. This is valuable and important. But I really ask you to touch on another topic that simply eats away at the soul of many Ukrainians and brings incredible suffering and pain. In a word, the topic is unknown. Explain. We all now live in a kind of uncertainty. When will the war end? Will we survive? What awaits us tomorrow? Will there be light and what will the winter be like for us? Will all the men return from the war and who exactly? And so on. It's true. I understand how hard it is to live in such uncertainty. Olga describes the pain, which is incredibly excruciating, the pain of a mother who has lost her only son or knows that he has been taken prisoner. It's the pain of a loving wife who doesn't know what to say to her children when they ask about dad. Mikhail, I have been watching my sister for 2 years now, whose husband is being held captive, and his mother desperately does not understand why there is no exchange or does not even know if he is alive at all. How many circles of hell do these people go through, looking for their relatives in endless feeds and telegram channels, not knowing whether they are alive or dead? I don't want to bother you with details. Sorry Mikhail for writing to you. I understand that you are not a psychologist or a support service, but you often manage to find the right words to support us all in this difficult time for Ukrainians. Maybe then you can find the right words until I run out of support for my sister. Olga, no, it won't work. Because this is a real tragedy. There is a difference in the things you write. Your sister has a real tragedy, her husband is in captivity. This is a real misfortune. And she's waging a real human struggle to get him back. And here no psychology will help and is not needed. This requires real effort. I am sure that your sister, and you, and all your relatives, and the Ukrainian state, and the Red Cross, and the UN, and who else is there, are making efforts. It is clear that psychology cannot help here. Tell your sister that I sympathize with her and support her. But as for your words about the uncertainty that has gripped us now, the uncertainty about when the war will end, whether we will survive, what awaits us tomorrow, whether there will be light, what the winter will be like, psychology can really help here. We have been living in the war for 3 years, Olga, and it's time to get used to it. This is our life. Well, somehow to continue life. Well, look, continue your life. Yes, life is also in war. Ask the guys at the front, they will tell you, Well, we are used to it. We live here. We have settled down somehow. These are people who risk their lives every day. We risk 100 times less when we are in the city. Although in Dnipro, too, people did not take much risk, but they fell. It's just that the Russians flew in from the sky and killed them. Therefore, yes, we just need to decide that yes, this is our life and we are ready to live as long as we want to win this war. That's how long it takes. So long we will live like this. As long as necessary, we will be without electricity. As long as necessary, we will wait for the end of the war. As you have noticed, Olga, I no longer make any predictions about the end of the war. I speak as much as necessary. It's very simple. As long as you need. But on the other hand, Olga, I can tell you other good news, so continue to watch the Sheitelman channel, put a like. Well, for example. That means France. Then everyone started singing and hurried to bury Macron as a politician. That's it, Macron will soon resign, because his party has lost everything. And one Sheitelman said, stop panicking, I said on Monday. Wait, it was the first round, the second round we have had since the 7th, and it can still be different. And now the first part of all this is happening right before our eyes. What is happening now? I have already seen these videos several times where they talk about the political situation in France. Recently, the pressure gauge, which had been silent for so long, finally started working. The 454th section passes into the 455th anniversary. I said then that it was too early to write about the end of Macron, and some political scientists even released a video called Macron's Terrible Mistake when he called early elections. Now everyone is shouting that they need to flee France, because the ultra-right will win and everything will end very badly. But wait, we need to fight. I am not a political scientist, I am a political strategist. We do not make forecasts, like political scientists, we try to influence. Do you feel the difference? I told you about the stream from football, where the famous Italian football player Paolo Rossi served 2 years for betting on the sweepstakes. Political technologists do not make predictions about elections, we can influence their outcomes. My speech on Monday caused a reaction from the right people. Today, in France, the left and the center are uniting in order to stop the supporters of Marine Le Pen and her Popular Front. The alliance of left-left and far-left movements invited its third-place candidates to withdraw from the elections and support a joint list, which included supporters of President Macron. Many candidates have also joined this together list. However, unity is not fully observed. And what really happened? In their parliamentary elections, there are 2 rounds, not 1. In single-member constituencies, the first 2 candidates go to the second round if they do not receive a majority in the first round. In France, sometimes the first 3 candidates go to the second round if they have reached a certain percentage of the vote. And this is what today's layouts look like approximately. It is known that there are supporters of Marine Le Pen in the country as a whole, but this is such a right-wing party, which would not be a very pleasant victory for us here in Ukraine. So, because they once even took a loan from Putin for the elections, they scored 32% there, but it was always a first-round game. In the first round, we gain a lot, and in the second we do not find new supporters. Why? In the first round of elections, those who protest against the current government vote for Marine Le Pen, and she wins 30% of the vote. At this point, the French begin to worry and say that they may have fascists in power. In the second round, everyone who fears such a development of events votes against Le Pen, supporting other candidates. To do this, they need a single candidate, so in the first round, the following often happens: Marine Le Pen wins with 30% of the vote in the presidential election, and in the second round, the candidates who receive 20, 15, 10 and 10% of the vote unite around one candidate and defeat Marine Le Pen. And now, as a political strategist, I will be pleased to see this, if the same thing happens only at the parliamentary level. I do not promise, but the fight will be hot. The second round is Sunday. They don't understand 32 degrees hot. Their air conditioners are working. They are not being bombed by the Russians yet. But if Le Pen comes to power, maybe the Russians will start bombing Paris. Why not? This is Macron. If he sends troops here, Macron understands that it is necessary to repel the attack of the Russians not on the outskirts of Paris, not in the forest of Verdun, but here, in the Donbass. It is necessary to repel the attack of the Russians so that the Russians do not reach the forest of Verdun. In general, after the unification of these parties, in fact, they joined forces. So they decided that where there were three candidates, for example, the Le Pen candidate got 30%, the Macron candidate 20%, the ultra-left candidate 10%. If all three of them go to the second round, then maybe Marine Le Pen will win. And so one of them is filmed, his votes go here, and he is already beating the candidate from Le Pen. In general, on Sunday it will be interesting to watch the elections in France. I think we have a good chance. We mean supporters of a healthy normal world, yes, and not fascism, even if it is French. Otherwise, you know, the chief rabbi of the Paris synagogue said that it was time for the Jews to leave. Wait for the second round Jews. Let's discuss on Monday. It's time to decide whether we should leave France, or whether we still have a chance to fight. It seems to me that Macron, after all, knows his business. There are political scientists who criticize him, but they are just having breakfast. Macron is the most experienced politician in France, twice elected the youngest president in the history of the country. He knows exactly what he is doing. His team consists of experienced professionals. I am very worried about Macron, his party, and that the new government does not fall into the hands of Marine Le Pen's supporters, such as Bardella. Well, think about it. Yes, just imagine, the Prime Minister of France will be Bardella. I won't like it at all. I'm for order, I'm against Bardella. And Bardella, by the way, was indignant. Bardella, who, in fact, Marine Le Pen nominated as a candidate for Prime Minister, said that until recently these parties, that is, Macron and the ultra-lefts, were ready to cut each other's throats, and now they are uniting. This is an alliance of dishonor. Uniting against fascism is an alliance of dishonor. Yes, we all united against fascism a long time ago. Okay, we will deal, of course, with those who win, as they say, in France, but I personally support Macron with both hands. But about Biden, they wrote me an indignant letter. It was very sad to see your comments about President Biden, about his debate with Trump. They write to me from America. We value information we get from you about Ukraine because we, but are from. I will not say where people are from. We trust your analysis regarding Ukraine. We value information we get from you about Ukraine because we both are from, не буду говорить откуда люди, and we care about Ukraine situation. Мы доверяем вашему анализу. Information about Ukraine is important to us. We care. We worry about Ukraine. We trust your data. I don't specifically say the name of the person. I don't give any details, because it's not personal. Yes, I just want to comment on my comments, to respond to this letter. That is, I am reproached for running into our partner Biden during the war, commenting on his speech, which was unsuccessful when, in my opinion, participation in the debate. I'll tell you what, our partner is not Biden, our partner is the United States of America, and my speech about the debate and about Biden's condition in this debate was not directed against Biden, it was directed in defense of America. I deliberately called even this video, if you have seen the video, I called it Sheitelman, Save America, Bless America. But it was a joke, of course. It is clear that this is God plus America. It means that America is in a difficult state if such events occur during the debate. It is America that is our partner, America is our friend, whoever its president is. I have no sympathy for one or the other candidate. I do not call on anyone, God forbid, to vote here. This is not France. I am not calling on anyone to do anything, but I am worried about America. Understand me, dear viewer, I did this in order to help America as much as I could, of course, to protect American values. In no way to offend Biden, there is definitely nothing personal here. In peacetime, as a wartime, it seems to me important to tell the truth in the sense that I see and what I say. I saw that such a misfortune was happening to Biden at the debate, and I said it honestly. I did not say that everything was fine with Biden, otherwise they would not have believed me. You believe my information about Ukraine. Why? Because I speak as it is, what I see, I say. What I see on the street, what I see in my own sky, I describe. Continue to watch the Sheitelman channel, put likes. Of course, Blinken, by the way, also came to Trump's defense. Blinken, Secretary of State, that Trump, as you can see, I don't care if it's Biden or Trump. In fact, Blinken came to the defense of Biden. Of course, he said that Biden had restored the world's confidence in US leadership. Biden, they see that President Biden is a leader in all different areas. He brings people together, focuses them on the challenges that they face that are common to many other countries, Blinken said. They see what Biden has done since taking office overnight and they appreciate this policy. They saw a president who reinvested in America, reinvested America in the world, and reinvested in alliances and partnerships the way they want them to. That is, that Biden has given America back to the world again, Blinken says. And you know, I agree with Blinken 1000% too. Of course, so I quoted the New York Times, which wrote the following. Mr. Joe Biden, Mr. President Biden, you've been a great president, you're a great president, it's just time to go home and rest after this debate. So writes the New York Times, so Blinken is right that Biden really did all this and I am ready to give Biden a standing ovation for everything he did. Still, we are discussing only one thing, whether Biden is ready to successfully do this for another 4 years. Moreover, they do not stop there. They are directly moving on to the destruction of the Russian Federation, Putin's regime, and so on in order to further strengthen NATO, include Ukraine in NATO, and so on. And this is where questions arise after the debate on this topic, but the Democrats seem to have decided that nothing will stop them. This is their choice, they're right, the American people. We are here, standing aside, quietly commenting on what is happening. In Ukraine, we, like a profile on a fly, do not get out of the trench, we just state the facts. It seems that the Democrats decided to nominate Biden as a candidate for the presidential election on July 21, 3 weeks later, without waiting for the big American Congress, which was supposed to be held in August in Chicago on August 19. Is Biden given time to think? No, they decided to speed up, to hold this on July 21 at another event of the party committee, so as not to return this issue to the agenda later. Because if we delay this issue until the end of August, it is not clear who will be nominated by the Democrats, which could shake the rating. I agree with the Democratic political strategists, if they have already decided to go with Biden, let them consolidate it as soon as possible. Bloomberg writes about it. But Bloomberg does not write about the fact that 1180 Russians died on the battlefields yesterday. Although this is good, because, as I said, tens of millions of Russians are involved in the murder of Ukrainians, and now there are 1180 less. 16 tanks, 17 armored personnel carriers, 57 artillery pieces, we continue to crush Russian artillery. It was a summary of the General Staff. We also attacked Novorossiysk with unmanned boats tonight at 3 a.m. We do not know about the results. Near the embankment, everything was blocked, there was an alarm due to explosions and shooting. They posted footage of how they shoot at our drones. Usually such attacks ended successfully. We have guys who know their business, each time new models of unmanned boats and their methods of operation are used. But I will not reveal these details and hope that we will soon find out what exactly we attacked there, perhaps today or tomorrow. Usually, satellite images arrive the next day, so we will see what happened, whether it was Russian ships in the Black Sea, Novorossiysk terminals, or naval drones that were apparently attacked. According to the information that are clarified, a strike on Crimea was aimed at the Shahed drone depot, and it was successfully carried out by cruise missiles of an unknown type in the area of Cape Fiolent near Sevastopol. The Russians confirmed that the target of the strike was a warehouse with Shahed 136 drones. Approximately 90 pieces of equipment were destroyed, which corresponds to the number of Shahed drones destroyed. It should be noted that many have tried to intimidate us by claiming that North Korea is sending troops and that a global war is beginning, but the Pentagon sees no evidence of North Korea's sending troops to Ukraine. This was officially announced by the U.S. Department of Defense at a press briefing. We know, of course, that North Korea supports Russia's efforts in Ukraine by providing various military support, but we have no information about their military's offensive in Russia. 6 months ago, one of the very serious people reported that China had supplied weapons or ammunition to Russia. However, shortly thereafter, information from the Pentagon appeared confirming that China was not supplying anything directly to Russia.
Многие опять-таки запугивали нас тем, что все, Северная Корея присылает войска, и нам наступает это самое гаплык со смаком, но нет, не наступает. Пентагон не видит, чтобы Северная Корея отправляла своих военных в Украину. Об этом официально заявили в Министерстве обороны США, заявила Сабрина Сингх на пресс-брифинге пентагоновском. Мы, безусловно, знаем, что Северная Корея поддержит усилия России в Украине, предоставляя различную военную поддержку, но мы не имеем никакой информации о конкретных войсках, которые сейчас направляются в Россию. И вот хочу заметить следующее, что полгода назад, сначала, кто это сообщил? Не вспомню, от кого исходили эти сведения, Блумберг или кто-то, кто-то из очень серьезных ребят сообщил, что Китай поставил вооружение. Ну что я говорю, конечно. Об этом сообщил министр обороны Великобритании. Сообщил, что Китай поставил боеприпасы или вооружение россиянам. Но и все таки уже запаниковали, все начали спрашивать, все, нам конец, не конец. А потом, через пару недель, вышел пресс-брифинг Пентагона, где было сообщено, что нет, мы проверили, наша разведка доложила точно, Китай ничего напрямую россиянам не поставляет, никаких боеприпасов. Что, как видите, и так и наблюдается.
North Korean missiles arrive in Kyiv, the shells reach the trenches where our guys are. In contrast, Chinese missiles are still not directed towards us, and this is a fact. Therefore, if the Americans claim that North Korea has not deployed troops in the occupied Ukrainian territories, then it has not deployed troops in the occupied Ukrainian territories. Another important topic at the summit is the arming of Ukraine, and we expect good news on air defense. This was reported by the State Department.
По противовоздушной обороне сообщил чиновник Госдепа. Вы слышали, что украинцы стремятся получить дополнительные системы Patriot и подобные.
We hope to be able to announce some new advances in air defense before the summit, the State Department official said. You heard that the Ukrainians are seeking additional Patriot systems and similar equipment. I think we're going to have good news for them on that front, right during the summit itself, which starts in a week. Better late than never. But, as they say, better late than never. He was an anonymous official from the State Department, and here is specifically Assistant Secretary of State for European Affairs James O'Brien, what he says. If Russia tries to expand the current front, then Ukraine will be allowed to fire at a greater distance. Now, according to O'Brien, Russia is losing the ability to attack due to the destruction of Russian capacities near Ukraine's borders. We are seeing a dramatic change in Russia's strategy in the conflict with Ukraine due to the loss of facilities in the area where it is allowed to fire. An official from the U.S. State Department officially confirms that it was possible to stop the offensive on Kharkov only due to the fact that now we have the right to strike at the Belgorod region, destroy warehouses, artillery and S-300 missile systems. This allowed us to stop their advance. And at this point, the question arises, is it logical to say that if it turned out well, then we can allow strikes 300, 500, 2,000, or even 8,000 kilometers deep into Russia? After all, in this case, Russia simply will not be able to attack in advance, and the entire war will be transferred to its territory, where civilians will suffer. Russia started this war, but civilians in Ukraine and now civilians in Russia are suffering. This is a logical continuation of events today, with Dnipro. If the Russians decide to expand the current front, then we will allow the strikes even deeper. They can expand in width, and we will hit in depth. That's the logic. If they move towards Sumy, we will allow strikes not 100, but 200 kilometers deep into Russia. If they go to Chernihiv from Belarus, we will allow strikes not for 200, but for 300 kilometers. And now you can't. But this will save our lives, it will just save Ukrainians. And it will destroy the Russians. If you can do it, you say it yourself, the State Department, then you are going to do it, if the Russians. And you can't do it without IFS, just allow it right now. Call right now and say, yes, of course, shoot, no problem, Biden said, but not on Moscow and not on the Kremlin. We will make a hole on the map on purpose, you can't go here, but everything else is possible everywhere. The logic is incomprehensible, isn't it? Why? From the fact that they will advance, we will be able to hit deeper. At the same time, by the way, in the United States, the shares of those who support large military assistance to Ukraine have increased. This news is especially positive for us on the eve of the US elections, because the more Americans support increased military assistance to Ukraine, the more difficult it will be for the future American president to change this policy. Almost a quarter of US residents, 24%, believe that the United States is providing insufficient assistance to Ukraine, while 18% previously thought so.
Что США оказывают недостаточно помощи Украине. А в ноябре так считали 18%, а сейчас 24%. Так что, мне кажется, вся вот эта шумиха, вся эта кампания вокруг Сената, Конгресса,
I think all this hype, all this campaign around the Senate, Congress, around the fact that Mike Johnson, by the way, where is he? We completely forgot about him. Yes, that Mike Johnson refused to put it to a vote. This hype worked. It became an important factor in the brains of Americans. It worked. Now they are saying, give more aid to Ukraine. Our voices were heard, numerous. We spoke, our leaders spoke, many US senators and congressmen spoke, Biden spoke, and all this was heard by US citizens. Not only congressmen voted to help us, but citizens also expressed their opinions. At the same time, 25% believe that there is a sufficient level of assistance, 24% believe that it is not enough and more is needed, and 31% believe that there is too much assistance. Thus, if we take into account that 49% believe that the same or more assistance should be provided, and 31% believe that less is needed, then we can say that we are, in general, positive. Well, Trump comes to power, looks at the poll, wants to reduce it. He says, yes, to reduce only 31% and to keep or increase 49. Well, it is clear that he will either leave or promote. He is not an enemy of his rating if this trend continues. The number of those who believe that it is necessary to increase assistance to Ukraine is growing. There is also good news for us in Europe. Most Europeans support an increase in military aid to Ukraine. More than half of the countries, more than 50%, support an increase in the supply of weapons and ammunition to Ukraine. This survey was conducted by the European Council on Foreign Relations in 15 countries.
Is it a good idea to increase ammunition and weapons supplies to Ukraine from its allies?
Here are the figures. For example, 74% of Estonians believe that increasing the supply of weapons and ammunition to Ukraine is a good idea, and 12% think it is bad. 66% of Swedes also support the idea, and about 12% consider it bad. In the UK, 66%, in the Netherlands 59%, in Portugal 58% think this is the right idea. In Spain, 45% support it, in Germany 44%, in France and the Czech Republic, 43% each consider it a good idea. What is important is that in all these countries, there are more supporters of increasing supplies than opponents. The ratio in different European countries is as follows. For example, in Sweden, 66% are in favor of an increase, against 12%. In the UK, the ratio is 59 for against 18. In France, 43 are in favor of an increase, against 35. In Germany, about 44 in favor and 39 against the increase. Most of the governments of these countries have to act on this support. However, there are 3 countries in Europe where they are against increasing support for Ukraine. In Italy, 26% are in favor of an increase, against 52%. In Greece and Bulgaria, for understandable historical reasons, there is also an opinion against an increase, but about sending troops to Ukraine. Most of the supporters, by the way, are still the same. I saw the first polls on this topic 2 years ago, in 2022, and Sweden is still the country where most people believe that it is necessary to send troops to Ukraine. At the moment, in Sweden, polls show about the following: 24% of Swedes believe that it is necessary to send troops to Ukraine. In Estonia, this percentage is higher, about 20%, as well as in Poland. However, in all these countries, the majority is against such a step. However, the 25% of Swedes who believe that troops should be sent to Ukraine is not a small number. Another 25% refrained from answering, 50% were against. These data are also based on a survey by the View Research Center in several European countries and in the United States, which analyzed attitudes towards Zelenskyy. What I see here, I will tell you now. On average, 40% of the 35 NATO member countries are mostly NATO members and a few of our allies.
В основном это члены НАТО и немножко там несколько просто наших союзников.
40% believe that Zelenskyy is making the right choice regarding world politics. 46% believe that no, the wrong one. That is, almost in half, with a slight predominance of skeptics. And confidence in Zelenskyy is falling. For example, in Poland it has fallen by 22 points since last year, by 7% in the Netherlands, Germany, Spain and France, by 6 in Sweden. Well, everything is logical here. In Poland, because we quarreled with him over grain, as you remember, there is nothing to be done about it. And in other countries, well, this is such a natural fall, it seems to me that our trust is falling over time. People are tired of the war, Europeans are tired. Trust is falling, and there is nothing surprising about it. Everything reflects our current situation inside Ukraine. Orban came to visit us yesterday, and I didn't tell you much about it, even though he had such a great offer. He tried so hard yesterday, but not for us and not for himself, of course. What do you think? This Orban asked for territories occupied not for himself, but for Putin, and he said so directly.
Я сказал господину президенту, это Орбан рассказывал потом, после разговора с Зеленским, что он предлагал Зеленскому. Я рассказал господину президенту Зеленскому, что его инициативы...
In principle, I am not against Zelensky's ideas, but I told Mr. President that Orban's proposals take a long time because of international diplomacy. Therefore, he suggested that Zelenskyy think about whether it is possible to do otherwise, first ceasefire, and then negotiate with Russia. After all, a ceasefire would accelerate the pace of negotiations. I find this strange. Why would the Russians be in a hurry to negotiate or withdrawal or anything else if we cease fire as Orban is asking? They certainly have no reason to rush. They can quietly rebuild the military industry.
Вот в этот момент у них точно ничего не капает. Они спокойно тогда восстанавливают свой военпром, они спокойно добывают нефть и газ, продают...
They are quietly extracting oil and gas, selling, accumulating money, buying tanks, guns, producing new guns, because we are now knocking out their barrels, as you can see, artillery barrels. They are building defensive structures in the occupied territories and no one is in a hurry. Therefore, it seems to me that Orban is wrong. A ceasefire will certainly slow down the negotiations, not speed them up. It seems to me that the path of world diplomacy may take some time, but it may be faster than we expect. However, the cunning Hungarian goulash, as cunning as it was, didn't work, in my opinion. His proposal did not pass. Indeed, Orban admitted today that Zelenskyy directly refused him this offer. Yesterday, at a press conference, Orban still thanked the president for his frank opinion on this issue, but today he admitted failure. Zelenskyy, commenting on this whole story at a press conference, said the following: Hungary took part in the peace summit, supported the communique, and this indicates Hungary's readiness to be effective in ensuring long-term security. That is, no matter how Zelenskyy talks about the return of Ukrainian territories, Hungary signed a paper at the peace summit, which indicates the return of all territories in the first place. But I honestly think that Orban played this performance for Putin. He came with his own goals. I mean, what goals? Here are these Hungarian schools. There are Hungarian schools. He said that there will be Ukrainian schools. The first Ukrainian school in Hungary is opening. Good job. Orban is now showing inside Hungary that he visited Kyiv and won rights for the Hungarian minority there. Everything is going well for him, and he is a worthy leader leading Hungary in the European Union. At the moment, he heads the EU from July 1st for the next 6 months, and his first visit was to be Ukraine. This is quite traditional for him. He demonstrated himself to be a real European.
Это вполне себе в традиции. Он показал себя настоящим европейцем, Орбан. Поэтому я бы его не стал троллить. Да, он выдвинул пропутинское соглашение, пропутинское предложение. Но это из разряда поручик Ржевский.
I wouldn't troll him. Yes, he put forward pro-Putin proposals, but these are just such jokes as those of Lieutenant Ryevsky, who so gallantly gets acquainted with women. Do you have a secret? They ask him. Yes, there is, he answered. About what? I am approaching the year of Madam, but I can drink roux at a feast. But you can get a punch in the face for this, but you can also get a punch. It seems to me that Orban thus stands out for his attempt, non-torture, to be a mediator. We are frightened by the fact that he will now be a mediator in peace negotiations with Russia. It's just ridiculous, and I can't hold back my ha-ha. Political analysts say that Macron lost, and everyone was wrong. This is how political scientists appeared, who heard that Orban would be a mediator in peace negotiations with the Russians. Let's take a look at today's issue of Common Sense, especially on Wednesday. Here I showed you on the fingers of Common Sense why Macron has a chance in France and how and what he needs to do for this. And now I will show on my fingers why we do not need intermediaries. What is an intermediary? Abramovich is a mediator, like we call Abramovich, and Abramovich calls Putin. Come on, if necessary, we will call Putin ourselves, we will not rust, no problem. Only the meaning of such a conversation. If we still do not believe in what he says, the conversation will lose its meaning. We don't need intermediaries, we need guarantees. Zelenskyy spoke when he gave an interview to Cheese Philadelphia, and he said that the only possible model now is that Ukraine can find a solution. This model was used for the first time on the example of the grain corridor, when Ukraine agreed not with Russia, but with Turkey, which, in turn, took responsibility to negotiate with Ukraine and then sign an agreement with Russia. That's how it worked. Two mirror agreements. Such a model can also be used in matters of territorial integrity, energy and legal issues. When countries from different continents are preparing a decision on a particular crisis, and then this document, if it suits Ukraine, should also be dealt with by representatives of Russia. So far we only have this model. And here I am ready to explain, this is not a matter of support, Zelenskyy does not need my support. I think I am ready to explain what is meant here. Here we are talking about mathematics in the context of signing a grain favor. Ukraine concludes an agreement with Turkey, which, in turn, has an agreement with Russia. The agreement between Ukraine and Turkey concerns the transportation of grain by civilian ships through the Bosphorus to the port of Odessa and ensures their safety. Ukraine also undertakes not to use these vessels to transport weapons or other prohibited goods. Turkey has the same agreement with Russia that such people will go here. There is an obligation that there will be no weapons on them, but no one will touch them. And why do we need Turkey? And so that if Russia decides to touch, then Turkey has the right to bomb Russian ships. If a Russian warship decides to detain our ship, then the Turks swim up like this. Who are you? Are you Russians? Russian warship, go to. I don't know how this word is in Turkish. In general, a Russian warship, I was the only one who put it correctly, and the Turks are therefore guarantors, so they have the power to be these guarantors. They have strength, they have the military power to become such guarantors, so they are necessary and useful. Why do we need Hungary? What is Hungary's strength? Hungary does not have the power to be useful to us. Understand? Hungary does not have the power to be useful to us. And this is a problem. Like, what should we do about it? Hungary will not be able to become a guarantor. Well, suppose we signed an agreement that the Russians would gradually withdraw troops from the occupied territories over the course of, say, 3 years, and Hungary became the guarantor of this agreement. But the Russians, so to speak, scratched their heads and did not begin to withdraw their troops. Hungary may send its troops or influence it in some other way, but Russian troops will still remain. No, the guarantor of such an agreement can only be a powerful military force, for example, the United States or China. When Finland's president said yesterday that there was a way to end the fighting in Ukraine with one call so that Xi Jinping could contact Moscow and settle the conflict, Finnish President Alexander Stubb said that the Russians themselves say they are independent of China. Are you talking at all? No. We are partners? I was thinking, yesterday I myself said in one of my interviews that China cannot be a guarantor. I realized that maybe I was wrong. I thought about it after that. Can, because the Chinese hold Russia by the lower part of the body. Well, if there is one in Russia, because the Chinese supply Russia with everything. All the technology, all the food, everything is there, more than food, tanks, in general, everything is supplied by the Chinese. The phones are supplied by the Chinese. Everything is supplied by the Chinese. Accordingly, the Chinese can set conditions for the Russians. Here, we are guarantors. If you do not fulfill, we stop supplying you with all this, we stop buying gas and oil from you, that's it, and you will die of hunger. China is capable of strangling Russia with hunger, cold in general and empty store shelves. The Chinese are capable of this, they can do it. Therefore, China could be such a guarantor, the United States could be such a guarantor, Hungary cannot be such a guarantor. Therefore, all these conversations with Orban, be calm, this is in favor of the poor, it will not affect us at all and will not come to us anywhere. But it is also literally necessary to tell you in express mode that today Putin should meet with Erdogan in Astana. Tomorrow there may be some results, but in the meantime he met with the president of Azerbaijan. The SCO summit is being held in Astana, and Putin met with Azerbaijani President Aliyev there. President Aliyev said yes, and Putin said that the trade turnover between Azerbaijan and Russia increased by 13% in the first half of 2024. If I were Azerbaijan, I would be more careful, because if your trade with the Russian Federation is growing, then we are already coming to you. The US State Department will tell you, we are already going to check if you are supplying anything unnecessary. This is very dangerous. The president of Azerbaijan does not need to get so close to the leper Putin. We are for it. We will support Azerbaijan, but there is no need to go so close. Look at the NATO summit next week. The delegations of Azerbaijan and Armenia were invited at the same time. Both the Armenian and Azerbaijani delegations were invited. There will be a special meeting of NATO partners on the 9th to 11th, that is, on the eve of a kind of summit. Armenia will be there. Armenia has already agreed, Azerbaijan has gone to think. That's where you need to go, there. At a meeting with Putin, Aliyev boasted that 150,000 people in Azerbaijan study in Russian schools, and another 800,000 study Russian as a second foreign language. Don't do it, Azerbaijan, you have just restored your territorial integrity, it's just time for you to forget the Russian language completely and remove it from the school curriculum. You have just restored territorial integrity, and now you want to deal with the Russians again. This is some kind of very dangerous game, but I think that President Aliyev understands all this without me and is just playing the cunning fox of the Caucasus, outplaying this Putin easily. Kazakhstan is holding a summit in Astana today, and the president of Kazakhstan, instead of meeting with Putin, went to meet with the Elder 11 and signed 31 agreements and memorandums of understanding to increase transportation and open a branch of Peking University on the basis of the International University of Astana. This is what I understand as cooperation. Everything else, why do you need it? Where? Kenny West, who came to Moscow, does not know Russian, because he did not study at a Russian school in Azerbaijan, and therefore sings purely in English. The Russians, who were happy with his visit, after his departure, asked, and who came to us, do you remember what we do? What he sang about, we do not know at all. Vysotsky sang about our cattle life. Thank you to everyone who watched. Subscribe to the Sheitelman channel. Put a like. I'll see you tomorrow.